Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this latest episode of the CPO Perspective. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Chris Hill. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So yeah, as you said, I'm Chris Hill. I am the head of procurement at Tails.com. Tails is a tailorized pet food business, and we're part of the Nestlé Purina portfolio.
Got you. Okay. The question I always love asking, because, obviously we all dreamt of being a head of procurement when we were children. What was your start? What's your journey been to where you are today?
My situation is quite interesting because it certainly wasn't the journey I thought I would have, but my dad's actually in this line. He's progressed into a similar position, also in sort of well-known FMCGs. So whilst it probably wasn't the dream, I do always wonder if there was some sort of situation arising where I'm watching this from afar and then following in footsteps unintentionally. But no, my journey is different. I actually studied law. Was very much intending to go into a career in that space. And alongside my studies, I was working part time at England Rugby at Twickenham Stadium. And this would have
Right.
been around sort of 2009, 10 ish. And we won the bid to host the Rugby World Cup. And obviously, the chance to be part of a home tournament was something that massively jumped out to me. Huge sports fan, big rugby fan. And probably unintentionally, I decided to defer starting my law career to take on a job as a junior buyer responsible for procuring all of the branding and promo merchandise that would be needed for the tournament. This role obviously went on for a few years, was great. Having the chance to work on that 2015 Home World Cup was
Yeah.
such
Wow.
a unique opportunity. And even though obviously England's journey didn't go to plan, the luck certainly wasn't there. It gave me this opportunity to just gain exposure to business and a completely different line of opportunity that I ever thought I would go through. And what started as quite a sort of small niche category expanded into procuring all of the kit and equipment that was used sort of on the pitch. I was working closely with sort of well-known brands in that space. It started with Nike at the time, and then Canterbury, and more recently Adidas and Umbro. It was a really good chance to work on the manufacturing side with those brands to bring to life the product that you saw on the pitch. This makes it sound like it was all me. It certainly wasn't. There's a big team behind the scenes that are, the real experts in this space. But the role you're playing there is making sure you're bringing about the internal and external understanding so that you come together with this product that's super fit for purpose. So I've had some wonderful opportunities there, and I was lucky that I had a manager at the time whose main focus was to put into play all of the systems, integrate an ERP system, and
Right.
they really didn't have the time to start looking after a team and all this sort of thing. So first of all, he gave me exposure across all the different categories that we worked across. So I was buying things across technology, I was buying marketing services, some of the FM contracts that occurred at the stadium. So I had a really good 360 exposure. And once I'd done that for a few years, I then took on the manager role and oversaw a team that were looking after those different disciplines. So it's very much growing up in an evolving team, which was great. Um, After a long time there, so sort of 15, 16 years, just post pandemic, I made the decision to move on from the RFU. It was a really, really difficult choice for me because it's almost like I had my end game in my first stage of the career, but a great chance came up to go and work at Asahi, so the Japanese beer company.
Right. Okay.
Um, so a bit of a change, but they had just picked up a load of the marketing opportunities and activations around events. So they were taking on the Man City partnership, Brentford, Harlequins, and a number of the sort of big concerts that you see across the country during the summer, so like British summertime and things like
So there
this.
was
And they
still a
needed
tenuous link to rugby then.
there was
Harlequin.
still, yeah. I mean, I do often say that my career looks a little bit like a boy's holiday itinerary when you've got sport beer so prominent in it. But yeah, this was a great chance to come in and bring some of the knowledge that I had from that world, but sit within a much bigger organization. My time at Asahi was so formative. You're working across a team of sort of 100 plus procurement professionals. They've got the procurement center of excellence there. So they're developing all of those skills around category management and all your segmentation disciplines, all the things that you need to become a complete operator, really. And again, was massively supported by a brilliant manager who probably the best person at procurement I've ever worked with, just because the attention to detail, but then the ability to keep people engaged and always have this really level-headed calmness about him was very, very influential for me. I think anyone that's done the sort of insights and preferences tests will know what they are. And I think when I went in there, I was like very red and very blue, and he certainly brought balance about me and helped me understand how to be a more complete operator. So great environment, some really
Red
top
and blue's
professionals.
quite a combo, kind of like aggressively detailed.
I think that's probably true, and there's definitely still some part of that. I think what my time at Asahi did was teach me to be a little bit more considered at times, try and lean into some of the subconscious preferences that I've got. So the way that they do that test, it actually splits into two halves, and it's the operator you are in your work environment, and then the operator you are when you're not. And when I'm away from work, I very much dial up some sort of involve me's and green, sort of get me outside, help me enjoy
Okay.
life, and
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. But again, helping people understand how to utilize all parts of their makeup is so key. Like, we will always work with different types of character, but
Hmm.
everyone can dial these different things up or learn these different things, and that's sort of one of the joys of the role that I suppose followed after Asahi. So despite being super happy there, not really having any intention to leave, a greenfield opportunity at SailGP came up. The former people director at the RFU was now in that environment, and it gave me this chance where he said, "Do you want to give it a go? Come and build the function for us." And it's something you can't say no to. Um, it's such a unique opportunity. It was in a business that's obviously owned by Oracle, so the support and championing of systems and like the modern way of trying to do procurement was very much central to the vision that they had, and they needed someone that could come in and enable that. And fortunately, I was given that opportunity to take that on. So I truly started where there was a couple of sides of A4, which was procurement. It literally was try not to use your credit card, get quotes when you need to, and if you get stuck, talk to finance.
How fun
And
is that?
it but that's the situation that I think anyone entering those environments is probably going to have. So that role was very much around educating both upwards and downwards. It was about putting in place really good processes, policies, systems, and then ultimately building a team out that could start to evolve those sort of broader procurement practices that you need around that sort of better category control and really understanding a dynamic supply chain. For people that don't know, SailGP is a little bit like Formula One and water in a sense that it's a touring sports property. We arrive in different parts of the world. The biggest difference being there isn't a racetrack that exists. You're in the middle of the sea. You've got to build temporary infrastructure and fan zones, villages, grandstands along the beach side. And that comes with its challenges. It certainly wasn't the terrain that was designed to harbor some of these things. But the great thing about that business is it wanted to find ways to achieve the unexpected and put on a great spectator experience. And it's going from strength to strength. And the little role I played over that 3 years was put in place some of the foundations so that they could source these things all over the world and have de-risked contracts, have people that can solve these problems from an engineering perspective for the organization, and try and keep some control on the numbers.
Right.
So
Well, I do you know what? I'm going to ask you some more about SailGP in a bit, but like in my mind's eye, we've got a journey that's gone from rugby at Twickenham to working with beer to working with Formula One sailboats and the exciting glamour, and you're now doing pet food. How did that last step happen? Or is it just it comes with age? We like dogs.
I think, yeah, I mean, look, I'm a dog owner. There's definitely some passion points. I think a common theme for me is I've always gone to industry where I've got an interest in it and a passion within it. And that's good
Well, yeah.
fortune as much as trying to be patient for those right opportunities to come along. The Tails situation for me was one that I knew that SailGP needed someone to take on the reins for the next step of the journey. I think the piece of humility that you need to have as someone that's forming a function is you can only take it so far, and one mind slash the support of your team will only be able to take something to a certain stage. And these jobs are never done. It needs different people with different vision, different experience, different skills to continue that improvement. So following some like good, open, honest conversations with the business at Sale, it was like, I know that this is how I do things and this is what I can do and it's what I've done. It's where my strength is and what I've built for you. You now need someone that wants to inherit this and just really hammer home some of those tools that have been put in place for them to grow from. And I think if I guess as you go through your journey, you start to realize there's things that are your super strengths, and there are these things that you need to know when to move on from. And for me, this was one where I'd done what I could do. I could give it what I could give. It is a truly global role. I was fortunate to have a team in Australia, a team in America, and then a team sat in the UK. So the demand on time's pretty hard. There's the manufacturing facility side of things as well, where they're building the boats. Big difference between Formula One and sailing. Is that you're manufacturing a boat that's consistent for every racer. So you're truly testing the talent of the sailing team, not just the ability to engineer a best in class performance vehicle. So yeah, it was just the right time. Got a young family, probably needed to get some more time and not miss out on those things as well. And I
Absolutely.
think to do Tails justice as well, there was an itch that I had to scratch when I left Asahi. I was enjoying the FMCG environment, and I don't want to speak down of the sport industry that's given me so much, but it's just different, right? It's a different beast to an environment where you've got to be harder on the bottom line, where you've got to really fight against true competition. As I say, like Twickenham at Rugby is a unique experience. Sorry, Rugby at Twickenham is a unique experience. There isn't a parallel really that you're competing against. The same as SailGP. Like it's different. Whereas working for Tails, there is competition, there is choice for the consumer, there are things that we've got to factor in there. So how well we manufacture and how well we secure that continuity of supply and the consistency for the customer is so different to what you're doing in those slightly different environments. And I think that's something that I needed to go back to and go again. The other fun thing about Tails is it's just at a really interesting stage of its journey. And when I started talking to the recruitment team and the talent guys that were working there, they sold it to me as much as me exploring it the other way. So yeah, it's in a good time
Do
and
you
a
know
good place.
what I love is every role you've spoken about, you've smiled.
100%. Like there was a huge moment for me in my career when I was interviewing ahead of Asahi for another very, very well known business. I won't name the name, but the piece of feedback that I got following the final round interview or the penultimate round of interview was they just didn't see my passion or love of procurement. And I don't know if that was a bit of interview nerves or just a bit of inexperience at the time or whatever it may have been. But it was such a huge moment that stayed with me. And this is probably the best part of 10 years ago now. Maybe, sorry, no, less, 6 years ago now, but it stayed with me, and I think it's just made me realize that if we don't enjoy what we do, it's always gonna be hard, and don't get me wrong, there are hard days, but trying to provide service to my stakeholders and trying to solve, problems that the business faces, et cetera, is what I enjoy as well as the development of the team, and if we can't enjoy it, what is the point? Like, it's
Well,
got to
no,
be
do you know what? You're so right. And if I look at your 4 roles, you've done, you know, a a a fixed installation, Twickenham, procurement. I mean, exciting, traditional. You've gone to Asahi, FMCG. You've then gone into what I would call combat procurement. I mean, SailGP, different venue, build it, get the boats, manufacture. I mean, just a completely fast-paced, pressure-built, but perhaps, as you say, a bit less pressure on the cost side of things because it was, this is a luxury sport. And now you're, as you say, you're in something that you love. You're back in FMCG, but it's very much margin and consumer focused. And that, there's a lot of common threads, loving what you do. But as you look at procurement today, and what's exercising your mind? I mean, do you have a worry bead? Do you have an excitement? Where are you?
so I am naturally curious. You can ask family, friends, wife, like they're going to say I'm that kind of person that likes to probably overthink things at time, but I love to be able to then solve the problems that we face. And obviously such a big topic in this space at the moment is AI. And I am an adopter and embracer of this. Like the systems that I've built in the last couple of roles have very much contained a lot of um, agent driven efficiency, automation, trying to utilize that technology at the uh, in the best possible way in the most mundane, laborious tasks to bring pace and efficiency, etc. But the where my mind goes on this all the time is why do we need these solutions now? Like what's gone wrong with the way that we train our teams or gain our education, whether it's via SIPs or in industry? Like why are we now in a world where the technology is solving problems that probably didn't used to exist when we had to do things in the most complete and proper way? And it's not to say that I don't want systems that can analyze market data in a way that's so much more complete than we will ever have the access to
Yeah.
the data to be able to sort of materialize. But like a really good starting point for this part of the conversation for me is something as simple as supplier intake when you're setting them up on your system. Why do we now need these systems to do this for us? It's because ultimately we've lost control of how broad and bloated our supply chains have become. And that for me then starts to raise the point that do we have true strategic partnership in mind? Has the way the world's changed to this like everything immediately mentality now meant that we do just shop around and we do almost Amazon our supply chains and stuff like
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Um, and it just comes down to a point where when you've worked in sport, the strength of a partnership and having a supplier that is both emotionally invested but capable to a certain level is the foundation of your supply chain. Whereas when I've gone into other environments and people maybe aren't quite as bought into the vision and the journey, we have to find those emotional drivers that can bring them on this journey and make them want to deliver for us. And I think that's maybe where a system will never have that intuition. And that's why maybe we need to get back to some of those principles that when we're developing the next era of professionals leading functions and completing activity on that day-to-day basis, they've got to have those skills that can connect and engage the suppliers that they're going to.
That's a really interesting perspective because I mean, essentially, what you're saying is we've because we've lost control. The only way we can regain control is AI, but it's allowing us to get away with something that perhaps we should stop and think about.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a philosopher or a scientist that will always talk about like cause and effect and the solutions that great minds and inventors and companies building these solutions are doing it because they're trying to solve a problem. And maybe where my mind goes is why have we created the problem? Because ultimately, if we can fix a solution at source, we can get those great minds and those companies and those developers that are making these solutions focus on the problems that we can't solve by just going back to brilliant basics. And I drive my teams mad when I talk about those. But if we do those really simple fundamentals well, it builds the foundation for all these other good things to come from it. And it's something that I've always sort of prided my own work on. I think anyone that knows me and has worked with me will say, yes, there are definitely bits that he will antagonize situations, but we know that he's going to have done his research. He won't enter a situation where he's not prepared in the most full way. He wouldn't have not taken that time to put in an extra call or whatever it is to that supplier or to the stakeholder just to understand on a human level, like what their challenge is or what can I do to make that situation a little bit better? So when I go back to those insights and profiles, that's the green bit of me coming out that does truly
Yeah.
care about the human side of it. And yeah,
Do you know? I just I'm going to come back to this this idea of partnerships and relationship. And as you say, if a supplier's invested in what you're doing, that's a great platform. Do you think that that need to get back to sort of proper partnerships with a smaller supplier base is something that's come as a result of value broadening from just cost down to sustainability? Or is it that we've realized we've got to go back to it because we've now got to solve this broader value problem? Again, it's a bit of a chicken and egg question, but what do you think?
it's probably both parts. I think due to the challenges that we're facing, both like geopolitically and economically, we have to have some diversity within the supply chain because we need that competitive tension, but we also need that continuity of supply. And option gives you stability is just the fact.
Right.
That said, I think if you're able to give certainty to a supplier to know they're going to have a contract for 3 years, it's up to them then to get their house in order and be able to honor that contract. And the only way they can do that is if we are transparent and we build that relationship. They know that they can rely on us to do our bits of that process, whether it's pay on time or get our forecast right, have a real stability in our plans, and be pleased when we execute them well. I think probably the biggest bugbear that I've got in our job is that something that everyone's got these timelines and Gants that say procurement, like strategic procurement, 3-month process or whatever. It never is. And the inability to always nail that is something that is still a big challenge. And maybe again, if we're not saturating our sort of clever friends and developers with systematic, laborious tasks, they'll come up with the ways to say, actually, this truly systemized stage gating is going to force behaviors and decisions to cooperate in a way that get pace into your decision making process. And that would be a great value add for us. But I think there's two parts. Like the stronger the partnership, the better, but you need that little bit of variety. And this is about doing that research again, going back to what the data is telling you, understanding who you can rely on to actually deliver the services you need, and articulating it in a way to your internal stakeholders that builds confidence in that solution. Like naturally, the other parts of business will always want to explore what's new and innovate and try and evolve the product offering to the customer. And part of a big thing for me is if we can find the suppliers that we can grow with and that we can develop simultaneously with our own progression, that's a great cyclical place to be in. And both parties benefit from that for however long it goes for.
And I can imagine it presents quite a challenge because, on the one hand, as you said, you want to kind of Amazonize the way that we work so that it's just simple, repeatable, technology based. But at the same time, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, de-Amazonize, because you want to have the relationship that's nothing to do with technology. So I can imagine that balancing those two things while still trying to preserve margin in an FMCG business is quite tough, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, like Tails is a B Corp, we're super proud about
Oh,
the
well done.
values we
Right.
show across the different areas there and respecting those 4 pillars. So yeah, getting the blend and the balance when you've got different sort of audit eyes overseeing, but also the values and principles that we want to practice is a challenge. I think the really important bit about this is having calm heads. And again, one of the other things that drive the team mad is when I'm like, our role is to be the calm amongst the chaos. Business is moving faster. Supply chains are changing more hectically than they ever have been. And it's our job to compute the information and manage the emotions of situations in the most calm, collected, and collaborative way that we can. Show that empathy, but also show like true intelligence when we give that guidance around these are the bad things we're trying to balance. We can't have it all, but this is probably the right sort of option or right choices sort of to take. And I think the big question really in all of this is, do you want to put your risk at the sort of heart of some of those big things, or and trust that we're going to innovate around it? We're going to go big and high on all of these areas and manage that risk. And the likelihood is if you get it right, you get a big reward. And if you don't, you're really going to struggle. Or do you build your risk into those sort of mid to lower parts where you can
Yes.
systemize and automate your lower value tail spend? And can you drive your innovation through those mid tier products that could become your absolute bolters if they go well? But at the end of the day, your staple product is always super consistent and keeps that market share and retention in a really stable place. And that's probably where I would say that's where we try and weight it. Like,
Wonderful.
if you're onto something good, don't mess it up. Like, keep delivering it. Let the market tell you when it's time to evolve it. Don't try and be super clever and, reinvent a wheel, so to speak. But yeah, play with the lower bits. Like, show that curiosity, show that innovative, entrepreneurial flair that kind of existed everywhere over the last sort of 4 or 5 years for me. Very much in sale and tails. That's been a true thing that they want us to change the landscape and disrupt and do things differently, which is great. So
I love the idea that you're a product of sales and tails.
this
I
is
hadn't
it.
I hadn't twigged that one. That's nice.
I can't remember, it may have been the LinkedIn slogan when I went from sales to tails, and everywhere in between. But as I say, I think the beauty of the variety and maybe where my journey is going, the more complete an operator I become, the more environments that I'm exposed to and can learn in and hopefully deliver in as well. The better the chance of going places where you can truly have impact because you've seen more and you've done more. And this potentially drifts into that last question around like the big bit of advice,
Well,
but it's,
well,
you
let's
know,
go there. I mean, come on. If someone's, I mean, thank you for sharing. But if you were to give one piece of advice to someone who is just stepping out in their procurement career, what would your advice to them be?
so the advice I've probably got is maybe slightly hypocritical in a way, but I think have a plan in terms of where you want to try and get to, and then every step you take, make sure that you're moving closer towards that end goal. So for me, that conscious decision to move between sectors and to try and always take on different responsibilities, more responsibilities, solve different problems is something that I feel I'm going to need. That if I'm going to get to the next level, the more complete I am, the better I will be, and therefore the more chance I've got of landing those jobs. The the bit of balance I would give this is make sure you're doing it in places where you share the values, where you can enjoy your work, and if that takes you sideways a few times to get to the next level, that's okay. Don't compare yourself to every other journey because why? You're you'll be great because you are you. And will you be successful in every environment? No, but you'll be successful in the environments you're meant to be in and where you can be your authentic self. And again, the mantras that I'll give to my team is we're going to get you to the best possible place to either grow here or move on and spread those wings. But always stay true to the values that you've got. And, I'm very quick when I go into an environment to set those stalls out about like what I'm about, what I want the team to be able to buy into, be completely honest and open with them. And whilst there's a little bit of unsettling for some at those times, at least they know what I'm going to be asking for. They know that I will be that sort of as honest with them, and then they can come and be the same way back with me. And we build that sort of trust and sort of openness from the off. And then can practice that across the relationships that we form.
And do you know what, Chris? I thank you for that because I think I'm going to share that with my children. You'll be successful in the environments that you're meant to be in. I think
Yeah, and
that's
I think
lovely.
yeah, I mean, I think look, this is a by factor of maybe the world we're in now. Everyone does compare themselves to everyone else. Everyone wants the next best thing, and maybe this is my philosophical moment or whatever, but it's true. Like you will be when you're meant to be somewhere and where you're meant to have impact. That is where you'll be at your absolute best. And maybe the hardest bit is having the self awareness or the like self confidence to
Confident.
realize that in
Yeah.
the moment and in the time. I've worked a lot on things like that self awareness because I've not really had the confidence issues that a lot of people in this world have, or
Mm.
that imposter syndrome that people
Mm.
face. But the bit that I had to learn was be aware in that moment to make the most of the situation. If it's an awful day, why? And it's okay because we'll wake up tomorrow and we'll go again. But
Uh,
again, maybe that's
lovely.
sport, maybe that's the resilience taught by sport. I know obviously you've got your military background. It's that same ability that we all need to dust ourselves off and go again and realize that everyone has got a role to play that comes into this space. The more variety and the more different kinds of people we've got, the better we will be when we're serving the stakeholders that we've got to support. So there we go.
Chris, what a wonderful message. And look, thank you for giving me your time and thank you for sharing what clearly has been a wonderfully enjoyable journey for you, even if your law professors might be a little bit disappointed.
They're probably relieved. My mum was the most disappointed. But I always balance this with my dad, who's probably my best mate and a great role model, absolute hero for me. He was so delighted when I took that job and he started getting access to tickets at Twickenham. So
Well, there we
he
go.
thought, again,
There
I
we
was
go.
meant to be there, and I was, it was the impact I was meant to have in that moment for his life of hospitality and enjoyment. So there we go.
There we go. Well, look, Chris, thank you very much. And look, I'm
Yeah, pleasure.
genuinely uh, inspirational. Thank you.
I
And
hope so. Yeah,
you
it's
know, but
fine.
I know, I mean it genuinely. I think it's honestly from me to you. It's such a lovely thing when you listen to someone who cares about what they do and enjoys what they do and has a passion for it. So thank you for sharing it. It's been a privilege. So
Amazing. Thank you. And I think anyone that listens who's maybe not sure what they want to do, like explore it, go in and explore it. Because if it's not for you, you will find your way, you will find your path. But it's just how it is. But no, look, I really appreciate it. It's really kind words there. I said to you before we did this that a big goal for me this year was to put myself out there and have these sorts of discussions, and it's been good. So leaving that comfort zone is well worth it.
well, keep on doing them. And I will definitely be in touch to get you speaking at one of the many conferences I do, because I think you've got a great message. So
Thank you.
look, for those that are watching, I genuinely hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you would like to be a guest, please reach out to me. If you've enjoyed it and want to share your comments or observations, please do. But genuinely, from me and from those that watch, Chris, thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely day.
Thanks.
Bye.